everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Full Court Cleveland, live on the Big Play Studios in front of already thawing Lake Erie. And here we are, Sam Amico, yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito, Ryan Tyler in behind the scenes in the controls, and a big week here for not only for the Cavaliers, for the NBA. Big week for City of Cleveland. First on the side of the Cavs, they continue to be the best team in the East. Had a rough ending to the week. We're going to talk about it later. Also, we have the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards and something related to that. Let me say hello first to my partner here, Mr. Sam Amico. How are you?
I'm doing well, Raf.
Are you presenting tonight?
I for some reason that invitation must have got lost in the mail. You would think that I would be presenting, but
our chairman, Dan Gilbert, will be receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award, and we're all very excited about that. Very well deserved. A little bit more about that. But Bobby Gibson, I was so happy this morning when I read the transcript. It says Bobby Gibson will be part of the show of the Greater Cleveland Sports Award, and I texted him. I said, Bobby, are you going to be in town tonight and you're going to be doing the show? Or are you at the spa getting ready for tonight? Because you know Bobby always got to look good. He's been doing the pregame shows on FanDuel Sport Network for the Cavs. And the answer, unfortunately, is no. Bobby Gibson has to be getting his beauty sleep. And I think he had like the cucumbers on his
right, yeah, the spray on stuff, yeah. But that's Booby's life, so, good for him.
Another week. Another new month for the year of 2025. We're going to break down some of the headlines. Trade deadline as we speak. If we see Sam Amico playing with his phone, it's because he's getting the what do you call it, last minute news. It's at 3 p.m., a little while for that to happen as we speak. But Sam, last Sunday was my birthday.
Yeah.
I woke up and I had 174 notifications. And I was actually very happy to see how many people were reaching out to me for my birthday so early in the morning.
Yeah.
Out of the 174 notifications, 3 were about my birthday. My mother, who had woken up very early out in the West Coast to wish me a happy birthday. She's always the first one. My daughter. And then the rest was about if I knew about the trade, what did I think about the trade, what do I like about the trade. Obviously, we're talking about the bombshell, Luka Doncic going to LA, and Anthony Davis going to Dallas. Every other name in there, we'll talk about it later. But were you surprised? Were you shocked? What's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I delivered you Smarties and lollipops on your birthday while you were calling the game.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think everybody had the same reaction to that Luka Doncic trade, right? Everybody was stunned, including Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis, and probably the other guys who were throw-ins in the deal. I still can't explain it. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, why exactly, people will say, well, Luka they weren't thrilled with his conditioning or his defense, and I was like, so what? He's putting up 30 points and 10 assists a game, and he's 25 years old. He's got a ways to go. Whereas, Anthony Davis, top 10-ish player, but, how far, into the future are you thinking about it if you're the Mavericks, where we're giving up the face of our franchise, who's only 25 years old? Anthony Davis will be 32 in March. Great rim defender, great scorer, great, like I said, great all-around player. But I think that it's something, Raf, that just stunned the entire NBA. Talked to the Cavs players about it, and they were shocked. Evan Mobley said, I looked at my phone in the morning when I saw it and was like, what? Is this real? And he was like doing extra research to make sure it was true. So, stunner for
Everybody
sure.
thought the account of what's his name, the new Woj,
Shams
Charania, whatever his name is. They thought they had hacked his Twitter because it was something nobody expected. But let me give you the disclaimer, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about this trade But everybody talking about the trade doesn't have the full story, to talk about why not, or why the Mavericks didn't get these guys, or why they didn't shop him around. But hey, we're going to talk about it anyway. We're going to talk about the weeks that the Cavs had. It was a historic week because on my birthday, they went nuts, including Sam Merrill, who I had a conversation with before the game. And you know the story about Sam and I. I always tell him when I was traveling with the team on the bus, I was like, we'll give him a number or how many threes I was expecting him to hit. And on my birthday, I went down on the court and with Reflog, actually. We brought the Reflog family. I think they think that's why Sam Merrill has such a big night. But I tell you, just have a big night. Just have a good game. And give me a good game. And he had a career night, a season high in points and career night in long distance shots. But we're going to talk about the game against the Celtics. We're going to talk about the buzzer beater. One of the bad things about me not being on the call for every game is that I don't have a play to share with that dagger that Darius Garland hit to beat the Pistons. But my favorite moment of the game is seeing that side of the throw. That I like it, that it came out a little bit, especially against a kid like the Thompson twin that plays for the Pistons. So we have a lot to talk to you about on this edition of Full Court Cleveland. Stick around. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Full Court Cleveland. I'm amigo, yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito. I had a conversation with the front office, a big play, trying to move this tape into a Friday so we could have like a full going on of the deadline, but I was vetoed by the bosses. So
yeah, they don't listen to us, and I don't blame them, really.
I don't blame them, yeah. And they told me, just make sure you stick to the program. So here we are. Cleveland Headlines, everybody, brought to you by our good friends at Garage Beer. Garage Beer comes in just 2 flavors, classic light lager and lime. No frills, no bitterness, no IPA. It's just beer flavor beer. Find your local retailers who sell Garage Beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com. And I'm following the rundown the way it was given to me. I see Ryan giving me the eye there because I'm skipping stuff. But no, let's start.
What else is new?
Yeah, Celtics Cavs.
Yeah.
That's what they want me to. They don't want me to start with the way the week going. They want me to start with the game that was on national TV, that it was the first of I think it was the 3rd week in a row that the Cavs were going to play back-to-back games, 3rd or 4th week in a row that they do 3 games in 4 nights. Well, no, don't worry about that. But what a horrible start for the game for both teams. I think it was like 6-4 with like 5 minutes to go in the first quarter when Donovan Mitchell put Porzingis on the poster. Right. And I thought that was going to like break the ice for the Cavs. But unfortunately, it was the Celtics who kind of found their rhythm in the first quarter. And that first quarter ended up being the difference for the game because the Cavs won the second and the fourth and lost the third quarter by like a couple of points. Yeah. And unfortunately, they kept coming back. Not unfortunately, it's a good sign that the team that we think is going to be the ones that we have to go through, obviously, because they're the champions. We have to give them that. But I'm telling you, Sam, I don't have a problem with facing the Celtics on a 7-game series. I don't care what part of this playoffs it is, because I think we play well, and we have shown that they really had trouble putting us away.
Yeah, and that's the good sign, is that you got down by, 20 points in that game, and were able to rebound and keep fighting and keep their spirit, as Kenny Atkinson called it. You don't need to beat the Celtics in early February. You need to beat them, obviously, April, May, if you're lucky enough to get there, fortunate enough to get there. And I think the Cavs know that, and it's very cliche, but these are good lessons, regular season lessons on, okay, here's the things we did against them that worked. Here's the stuff that didn't work. And if the Cavs are making shots, look, Boston deserves credit because they're an outstanding defensive team, particularly on the perimeter. Cavs shot 28% on threes, which is very uncharacteristic. And again, we're still in the game against the defending champs with all of their pieces. The Celtics had all their pieces, all their main guys. So, I think that you could take things away from these losses that are positives and say, okay, if we fix this one or two area or hit a couple more shots, we're going to get these guys in a 7-game series, particularly if the Cavs have home court advantage. And right now in a 7-game series, they would.
And let me take that segue from you, because you're talking about, I always like to say it in the regular season is wins and lessons, not wins and losses. But let's take the last game, for example. I think we talk about the bad start. I think the first triple that was hit was by the Celtics, and it was like the 16th or 15th triple attempt by both teams. But Evan Mobley probably had his worst game of the season. He had 3 buckets that were all either offensive rebound jams or one alley-oop.
Yeah.
So he had a bad game. He rebounded great. We're going to talk about it later in here in this segment. But one of the things that I felt, it was the loose balls, and I know JB Bickerstaff, our ex-coach, had a T-shirt that said "Win the scrap."
Yeah,
I believe that's part of the lesson where the Cavs needs to pick up. I think it's getting to a point where they have to know that even the Celtics come to our building with the hopes of just giving us their best. I think that both teams were a little tight at the beginning, but the loose balls, aside from a couple of loose balls that Sam Strus was able to secure, I think that was a big chunk of the difference. And obviously taking care of the ball is one of the things that the Cavs have done well this season, but that's something they really have to step up come playoff time.
Yeah, and that was just it. I sat there watching that Celtics game and thought Boston's getting every 50-50 ball, right? And those are so big, particularly in a game that ends up being pretty close. So, you're probably right, Raf. That's hitting the nail on the head. Is if you out-scrap Boston, you're really onto something, or whoever you're facing. So that's a huge thing, is getting those 50-50 balls. And, those Boston got too many second chances, and you can't give them second chances because they're such a good three-point shooting team. Really, to me, the bottom line on that game was Derek White hitting those 2 late three-pointers. I've watched him like against the Lakers or the Sixers or the Knicks, and the guy can't make a shot. He sees Cleveland, and his eyes light up.
But on Horford.
Right, and those were well-defended plays, too. So, again, as you said, wins and lessons. And right now the Cavs have only had 10 lessons against 41 wins. So I think that, these are all positive signs, and you just take away what you can from the loss.
You knew it was going to be a long night when the Cavs had 4 points with like 5 minutes to go in the first quarter, right after they had put up 50 points in the first quarter against the Mavericks, who were trying to survive the shock. Not just everybody, but the Mavs themselves. And also, no Kyrie Irving again against the Cavs. And let's go to that historic night, Sam, because 50 points, the most points scored in the first quarter by the Cavs, in any quarter by the Cavs. 26 triples. Sam Merrill, one of his 9 triples, was the 26th of the game for the Cavs. The most triples hit by a Cavs team in a game in the franchise history. 91 halftime points. Also the most points scored in a half. And everything seemed to go the right way for the Cavs in a night or day. It was Sunday midday, but it was expected that the Cavs should do well.
Yeah.
They just took the will and the hope from Dallas right off the bat, right off the jump, and there was no coming back for them.
Well, that's, Kenny Atkinson said that after the game. Going out and blowing out a team that you should blow out because of their circumstances is a sign of growth and maturity, believe it or not. Even though it kind of looked like an NBA 2K game, I think that is. A lot of times, Kenny Atkinson said this before, it's a coach's worst fear is facing a team that you're supposed to blow out. So you come out and you kind of go through the motions. Cavs have not done that a lot this year. They've had a couple games, where they barely beat the Wizards or something like that. But for the most part, when they see these teams that are wounded, so to speak, whether it's actual injuries or emotions, they've been able to just come out and put these teams away quickly. And there was no better example of that than the Dallas game.
Started the week from our last broadcast finally beating Atlanta. They were down some couple of bodies, but hey, you face. Nobody feels bad. Nobody feels sorry about who's missing, and you play who you have in front of you.
Right.
They beat Atlanta. They beat the Mavericks. Lost to the Celtics in a close game. The last 11 games between Celtics and Cavs have been decided by less than 10 points. And then they go to Detroit, a team that is up and coming. We talked about it. We cannot guarantee they were going to be in the playoffs before they got into a skid, and they're in a little bit of a skid, but it's a young team. You take away from the game without Donovan Mitchell, I think at the end of the day, it was kind of like, no, you win. No, I win. No, you win. The two fouls on 3-point attempt by Kate Cunningham, I think those were like another time to learn, even when you win. It's kind of defensive miscues for the Cavs. And Darius Garland, I guess, taking control of the fact that Donovan Mitchell was out. He was the one that was going to carry the team, even though Evil Mobley got his 30-point games and 9 boards and played really huge in the first half. But Detroit is a team that won't go away.
No, I mean, and that's been the one thing under J.B. Bickerstaff, as the Pistons have this new resolve that, they're just not going to go away. And they did get some nice help from the officiating, which I have many complaints about that, which is probably an entire show about the Cavs are getting no calls. But either way, I thought, obviously, the Cavs played pretty brilliant for most of that game. It's just Cade Cunningham, just toward the end of the game, was unstoppable. The Pistons got some calls, and then Darius hit a shot that Boobie Gibson would appreciate there at the buzzer. I thought it was interesting. Darius hit that shot, and then we went to the FanDuel Sports Cleveland Cavaliers live post-game show. And there sat Boobie to talk about it.
Been there, done that, said Boobie when he started the segment.
Right.
So that's the week that was. When we come back, we're gonna look ahead. And finally, I don't want to say it's an easy stretch of the breaks, but before the All-Star break, the Cavs have a 3-game week, and we're gonna think and talk about that when we come back in Full Court Cleveland. De regreso con ustedes en Full Court Cleveland, mi amigo Sam Amico y un servidor Rafa Hernández Brito with you guys. That's I don't know why. Is that like a new tradition of at least starting a segment
I think so.
En español? Yeah. One of these days I'm going to do a full segment, and hopefully, but
I got to work on that.
Sam Amico doesn't have fast hands to do his Duolingo Google Translator thing. But the week that was, it already was historic game. A loss that becomes a lesson, and the Cavs can actually finish the week with a big buzzer beater. They actually escaped their first overtime game by Darius Garland hitting that 3. But now they have like a 3-game Friday, Monday, Wednesday series with 2 on the road with the Wizards, who are going to be a completely different team after getting rid of Kuzma and Valanciunas and God knows what until we finish this day. And then they go to Minnesota, a totally different team, but with a guy that I believe should have been a starter in the All-Star game with Ant Williams, and then finish in Toronto, another team that's going to be a totally different team already with time after the trade deadline, but we already know that PJ Tucker is going to be there, and I forget they got rid of a couple of players, got some new ones coming in Toronto. What's his name from New Orleans?
Ingram.
Brandon Ingram. I still we'll talk about it later so you can explain the philosophy of where Toronto is going, but quickly, what do you see this week being for the Cavs before they head into the All-Star break?
Well, Minnesota's obviously a tough spot to play. They're a team that has the pieces that went to the Western Conference Finals last year, didn't make any big moves, and just a team that's obviously on the up and up. And if they pull it together, and they do that from time to time, it's always frightening. Obviously, the Wizards traded Kuzma, traded Valanciunas, and then went to Brooklyn and won the rare game a night after Brooklyn scored, 4 points in 10 seconds to beat the Rockets. You can't take anybody lightly. And maybe the Wizards now are, hey, we got to win. I'm sure the front office was probably not happy about their win. Michael Winger, the Wizards president of basketball operations, is a Cleveland.
Tanking accusation.
Right. The Wizards are actually run by a guy from Cleveland, and Michael Winger. Yeah. He's the president of basketball operations, used to work for the Cavaliers. So they have a plan there, and right now it's not to win a lot. So when the Cavs see teams like that, they need to take advantage of that. The Wizards should be down and out, but I'm sure right now they look at it like, hey, we have nothing to lose because we're not supposed to win. And imagine if you're the Washington Wizards thinking, boy, if we beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, we'll be the talk of the league for one night.
It'll be the 4th game they win in a row.
Yeah, right.
Talk about going against plan. But there's so much going on today as we're taping this edition of Full Court Cleveland that you will forgive us if we don't go full detail on trades. We can only talk about the ones that we know already happened. I'm curious to hear what Sam Amico has to say about what the Kings are doing with the Aaron Fox going to San Antonio, what that means to Wemby and the Aaron Fox and the Spurs. You know, they didn't really give up much, Sam. But another name that I'm surprised got traded, aside from Ingram going to Toronto, and it's like, okay, what happened? Zach LaVine. This is the guy that the Bulls could have gotten a lot more for him, even when he was injured last year, than what they did, and no shockwaves going around with Zach LaVine going to Sacramento.
Yeah,
that's what he went.
He went to Sacramento as part of that De'Aaron Fox trade to the Spurs. It was a 3-team deal, and the Bulls, basically got not a whole lot for Zach LaVine. Now they're in an interesting situation, the Bulls, because if they fall out of the lottery, or out of the top 10, that pick goes to the Spurs. So they really wanted to make sure that, we're going to be in the top 10 of the lottery. And the way they did that was by basically giving up Zach LaVine for not a whole lot. In Sacramento, it's kind of an interesting situation because you've had DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine playing together in Chicago, and you saw how that worked. It was okay. And now they're together again in Sacramento. So, for the Bulls, obviously this is a clean house type of situation to get a better lottery pick in a draft that's supposed to be good. And they were a team that was right there in the play-in tournament every year, kind of spinning their wheels, and they seem to decide, let's just tank the full way.
What's your take on DeMar DeRozan that goes as a free agent where he could have gone anywhere? The Kings were the up-and-coming team with Sabonis and the Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell, who's no longer there anymore anyway.
Right.
And now he finds himself in a team that I don't even know what to call it, if it's just retooling, rebuilding, or resetting.
Yeah.
The new head coach, I don't know who the head coach is going to be. I don't know if they're going to keep the interim coach they have right now. They lose Jordy to Brooklyn. Now they fire Mike Brown. Then they trade the other guy that was supposed to be part of the problem there in that combination between Brown and the Aaron Fox. What's your take on not only Domantas Sabonis, who have gotten there to start rebuilding on that trade that sent Halliburton and Hill to Indiana, but also DeMar DeRozan, who is at the later stages of his career, and I don't think he has much time to figure out how he can do. He missed it. He missed the title, in Toronto, and now he's going to come up short in Sacramento for sure, at least this season.
They look like the Chicago Bulls West, the Kings, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what they've become. It seems like they're a team that's going to be good enough to get into the play-in tournament, but probably not really go anywhere. And I think that you're going to have to, at some point, whether it's this offseason, probably move on from DeMar DeRozan and just continue to build around Sabonis. But, Roth, I think the biggest shock would be if you're Klay Thompson, who signed with the Dallas Mavericks, and then by the middle of the season they said, thanks for joining us, Klay. By the way, we're trading Luka Doncic, so glad you decided to come.
We'll talk more about this decision and the situation in Dallas. And also there was another trade that was the worst-kept secret. We knew it was happening. We didn't know where he was going to go. Jimmy Butler is now a Warrior. We'll talk about that, and we'll power rank the most shocking, the worst, or whatever you want to call it, trades in the history of the NBA or in sports. I'll leave it up to Sam. We'll see that when we come back in Full Court Cleveland. We're back at you from Lake Erie, in the shores, at the beach in Lake Erie here in Cleveland, Ohio. Full Court Cleveland on the Big Play Network and obviously on FanDuel Sports Network. Download your Big Play app so you can catch us anytime you want, even though you can always catch us live on FanDuel Sports. And on Twitter, Sam Amico, yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito. Quickly, before we go to the rankings, I'm getting out of there.
Going off
Getting
script.
off track here.
Okay.
No, still on script, but a little off track. Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Finally gets the trade. There was rumors that the trade was already done and he had vetoed it, and now he's there. 2 year, 100. Did I read that right? Was it 12.1 or 121 million?
I think it was 121
for 2 years
for 35-year-old Jimmy Butler.
Who has never been happy anywhere he's been.
I mean, everywhere he's gone, there's been some drama, right? And whenever I used to get in trouble as a kid, which wasn't often, but when I would, my dad would say, well, what's the common denominator? And it would usually be me. So with Jimmy Butler, that seems like that's happened now in Minnesota, Chicago, Philly, and now Miami, and now he's going to Golden State, which does he move the needle enough for a team with, Steph Curry can still get it done from night to night, but, you're relying on Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Buddy Hield. I just think that, maybe you've given yourself 2 or 3 more wins if you're the Warriors, but does it really move the needle with Jimmy Butler? And signing him to an extension, to me, it just sounds like a really bad idea. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I just don't think you get very far when your 3 best players are entering NBA rocking chair stage, which is where
and they're not LeBron James.
Right, exactly. And Steph Curry, you don't know how much longer he has left. Draymond Green seems like he hasn't been the same in the last 3 years, and Jimmy Butler, again, 35.
The only good thing about it is that since 2020, Jimmy Butler is tied with Luka Doncic, both of them traded on this trading deadline, with tied for the most 40-point games in the playoffs with 8. We'll see. But this is a disclaimer. We're no gamblers. We don't recommend anybody to bet, but I'm going to ask Sam here. In terms of weeks, what's the over-under in how many weeks till Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler get it in their faces? And
I give it about 3 weeks. No, I mean, seriously, you have 2 very, very strong personalities there. And Jimmy Butler is a guy who barks at his teammates in practice. And, I don't say that as a negative.
And Draymond Green does more than bark.
Draymond Green, obviously, they're both big talkers, put it that way. And unlike you and I, Raf, not everybody who's a big talker gets along gloriously.
We'll see what happens in the world of the Warriors, but we'll go back on track here. Power ranking, Sam, this is you. This is just top 3, but you can do as much as you want. You can bring a 6-pack of Garage Beer, a 12-pack, because we're going to get into the Luka trade a little more later. But we are going to power rank the 3 craziest trades of all time. They say it's up to you if you want to limit to the NBA of all sports. You tell me which one you remember. I can give you one that I remember on my days with the NFL, which when Herschel Walker was traded for what became the triplets in Dallas. And by the way, that's the last time the Cowboys smelled the Super Bowl, other than them having it in Dallas and when the Packers beat the Steelers. But how about you? What trades do you remember? Do you think are like craziest, wild? And I don't think anyone matches the Luka Doncic Anthony Davis trade.
Yeah. Well, I you're right. I don't think anything in my lifetime was as surprising and stunning as the Luka Doncic Anthony Davis trade. Going back in Cavs history, 1989, when the Cavs traded Ron Harper to the Los Angeles Clippers, and Ron Harper was, a fantastic player,
the defensive player of the league at that time, right?
He was really Michael Jordan's nemesis, at that point in his career. Then he got traded to the Clippers for future Cavs GM Danny Ferry, Reggie Williams, who was a star at Georgetown and didn't really do much in the NBA till he went to the Nuggets. But really at that point, if you think about Mark Price was so upset about that trade, and Ron Harper and Mark Price still talk about that deal. I talked with Brad Doherty about it a little bit. So that was probably, when you talk about Cavs history, that was the one. Other trades, I'm sure, obviously, way before my time, Ralph, was the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar trade from the Milwaukee Bucks to the Los Angeles Lakers, which was orchestrated by Wayne Embry, who also traded Ron Harper from the Cavs to the Clippers. So
he's one and one.
The greatest guy in the world. But, he orchestrated 2 of the most stunning trades in NBA history. And then, to me, the go off topic, and I hope we don't lose any advertising, but I thought it was a terrible trade when at the moment the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson. I just thought they gave up too much. And I I was surprised that they were able to do it because all the news was he was going to the Falcons or going to some other team.
Did they trade? And Ryan would know. Did they trade Baker away, or was it a free agent signing there?
No, it was a trade to Carolina.
That's a bad trade too to me, especially
he didn't want to be in Cleveland anymore after they told him, you're going to back up Deshaun. No. They're lucky I come in every day being Booby's backup. So,
well, I think there's so many places to take, and we're gonna talk about the second time Luka Doncic has been traded in his NBA career. I don't know if you remember, but the first time was on draft day.
That's right.
When he was traded from Atlanta to the Mavericks, and Trae Young went to the Mavericks on a pick that became Cam Reddish, who also just got traded
to Charlotte.
With
on Dalton
that trade. The Nets, the Lakers gave more for Mark Williams, I believe, than they gave for Luka Doncic. And we'll talk about that because I'm going to leave some time to talk about this trade and everything else when we come back on Full Court Cleveland. Sam Amico and yours truly, Raf Fernandez Brito, back at you. Full Court Cleveland on trade deadline. We're gonna have a trade deadline special when all the dust settles.
Yeah.
Next week when we know who got traded, when we know who got bought out, when we know. Because for example, PJ Tucker went from Clippers to Miami, had a colada and 2 croquetas, and now he's in Toronto.
He went to Utah and there's somewhere
to Utah,
too.
And then I don't know where Kyle Anderson is on that trade. It's a 5-team fight.
Kyle Anderson was supposed to end up with the Toronto Raptors, but then they couldn't work out the deal, so he's stuck there with the Heat. That's always a tricky.
Which I'm sure the Heat are trying to come out with something because they just got rid of PJ Tucker.
And ended up Toronto. And Raf, what are the odds that Andrew Wiggins and Kevin Love traded for each other in 2014 in Cleveland? Are now teammates with the Miami Heat.
And it was so funny to see on social media yesterday, Kevin Love, who has won, he should get an award for his tweets and for his post on Instagram during this whole Jimmy Butler thing. His takes were just so right on spot.
Yeah.
With movie clips. And just thinking about how Jimmy Butler reacted to him using his situation to make comedy, how Jimmy Butler reacted to Spoelstra telling him Highsmith was starting instead of him. I think if you can go back and if you're a Cavs fan, you know that Kevin Love was one of the funniest dudes. And he's one of the funniest dudes in the world. And his takes on Instagram were just right on spot. But let's talk about, we already figured out that it was the decimal point was after the second one and not in between the 2 and 1 of 121 million for Jimmy Butler. I think San Francisco is doing really well economically.
I guess so, yeah.
To give that much money for a 35-year-old. But Luka Doncic goes on Sunday or Saturday Saturday night and Sunday after LeBron and the Lakers had a great game in New York, beat the Knicks without Anthony Davis, who had just Anthony Davis' last game was a 40-20 game.
Yeah.
Right? 40 points, 20 rebounds.
Yeah.
So they get traded. LeBron supposedly didn't know about. He found out while he was having dinner with his wife and his family in New York. But what's shocking is what comes after. And again, like I said earlier, we don't know all the details as to why the general manager in Dallas would just go out and not shop him around. Pat Riley went out and shopped Jimmy Butler. Nobody wanted for all over for like weeks until he got the deal that he thought was the best for him, right? So Anthony Davis and Max Christie, not Reeves, not Kanech, not Reddish, not Hashimura.
Yeah.
They got Max Christie and a pick from I don't know what year,
2029, I believe.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those Space Odyssey movies, the picks that they're trading now. But I believe the Cavs, not only the Mavericks didn't get the best they could have, I don't think they got the best from Los Angeles to trade Luka Doncic at 25.
That's what's so puzzling about that deal is you got something for Luka Doncic that you could probably get for Daniel Gafford. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I just don't understand what the big issue was. I'm wondering if he made that call, Nico Harrison, the Mavs GM, if he made that call to Lakers GM Rob Pelinka, and Rob Pelinka's first question was, is there something wrong with Luka, an injury that I don't know about here? Because it just seems like they purposely gave away a guy who was not only, in the NBA Finals last year, but has at least a decade more, you would think, of top-level basketball. And you got, as you said, Ralph, you didn't get Austin Reeves. You didn't get Hachimura. You got Anthony Davis. Again, great player, 32 years old in a month, breaks down as if he's 42 most seasons, and really a pick, kind of a throwaway first-round pick for one of the top 5 players without question in the NBA, at least offensively, and can lead you to great things. I think about that trade, and I'm still stunned. And I'm almost surprised that the NBA didn't step in and say, wait, what are we doing here? So to me, it's and I know the rest of the league's just like, whatever. That said, are the Lakers, without Anthony Davis, they went out and got Mark Williams. Are they any better? Maybe 3 or 4 more wins, first, second round exit, you would think, but there's 2 great weapons in LeBron and
There's
Luka.
many things to look at it. The first one is we already have reports that the reason they went to get Mark Williams is because Luka said he wanted to play with a lob guy. So now we're already seeing how is Luka the one that they're building around and not LeBron. So we're still to see how that whole thing ends up. Another thing is just to put this into perspective of why, again, and we don't know the ins and outs. Speaking of ins and outs, I don't think Luka's going to last 10 years after he discovers in and out, coming from Whataburger. But let's not get off subject here. But let's put this into perspective. The Cavs gave a combination of 5 picks, swaps, and whatever for Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
That included Colin Sexton and Larry Markkinen.
Right.
We got some players back, whatever. Second round, whatever you want to call it. The Knicks overpaid for Mikal Bridges in a tune of 5 first picks too.
Yeah.
Minnesota gave Utah the same for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
And just to put in a little bit more into what I think this happened, the Lakers gave the Hornets Kanech, who was drafted 7th last year.
LeBron favorite as well.
Right?
Yeah.
And at least 1 first-round pick for a kid that could be
right, the center in Mark Williams.
The center in the future in LA, but it's not a guy that you're saying like, wow, what a steal.
They did. They gave up more for Mark Williams, the Lakers did, without question. Cam Reddish's career has been a little bit questionable, up and down, hasn't lived up to expectations. But, to give up Neck, which is, if I'm Dallas, I would have demanded him for Doncic. If you're going to be willing to give him up to the Hornets for Mark Williams, and I mean, you're talking about that's a big part of your future, Dalton Neck, if you were the Lakers. Obviously, LeBron favorite. We've heard LeBron praise him since the moment he was drafted. Just a guy you hate to give up if you're talking about the future. And this is where the Lakers are, right? We have Luka, we have our center, LeBron's still hanging on, and still playing well, very well. But these moves are about the future for the Lakers, and they gave up a rookie who was having a good rookie year, and you know what? Was probably their best perimeter defender at this point. So, to me, it's I'll never understand
and choose
what
to
the
keep
Mavericks
a guy
decided.
who probably hit his roof in Reeves and decide to trade a guy who I think has probably a little more up.
But without question,
right?
Net has more upside. But I just think if you're Dallas, how did you not get Reeves? How did you not get Hachimura? How did you not get 5 second-round picks and another first? It's just mind-boggling. And I think, could be wrong, but unless they get to the finals this year or next, that GM wrote his own ticket, not just out of Dallas, but out of the NBA.
Another thing about that trade, Sam, and you know more about this than it, but like I'm still questioning what the Utah Jazz were doing in their helping this thing happen.
Yeah.
When we help and I say help, meaning we have to
Facilitate.
be involved
Yeah.
in order for it to work. When we help that movement from Houston, from Harden, it was from Brooklyn to Philadelphia, no?
I think so. Harden's been so many spots. it's
Whatever.
hard to
But the thing is that we ended up, and we were the last part of the tweet that said, Harden goes from here to here, and the Cavs get Jared Allen.
Right.
And we gave up Dante Exum, and I forget who else it was. I don't know if it was Terran Prince and a second rounder. But we got Jared Allen.
Right. It was the throw-in in that tweet.
No
you're right.
disrespect to Jalen Hood-Schifino
Right.
and a second round pick, but that's what the Jazz got for being involved and making this whole thing happen.
Yeah, and Utah's in a very audition stage where we get a guy like Jalen Hood-Schifino who probably doesn't play very much other spots. He's going to get every opportunity here. Again, Raf, you're right. I mean, there's no argument. It seems like the Lakers stole this deal, and not just from Dallas, but obviously Utah's involvement too, because I don't know what they got out of this.
And again, there's so many more players moving, and we're going to talk about it in full next week because the deadline hasn't even happened yet. But there's so many guys that have moved and so many multi-team deals that I think the league is going to come up with something to figure out here how they avoid.
How do we calm down these
It's
GMs?
kind of like a loophole to get all these teams involved. But we're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in the NBA when we come back in Full Court Cleveland. Welcome back to Full Court Cleveland. Down the stretch we come. We have hopes of getting Boobie Gibson for the final segment, but he decided to go with the wax session in his hands and feet just to get more like oily looking.
Yeah,
and just
right.
got the skin softer. So I'm sorry, Sam, we won't have Boobie Gibson this segment, but hopefully we'll have him next week.
Well, I could probably afford to go to the same
He definitely
spa
has not
he's
been
going.
traded. He's still with Full Court Cleveland.
As far as we know, yeah. Haven't heard that. He has a couple hours yet. We'll see if he's still here. Yeah.
Super Bowl. What is it we are now? 59?
I have no idea.
The Eagles and Jimmy the Cricket playing the Eagles
Chefs.
and Chef.
Yeah.
Are you betting against Andy Reid and
No.
Spagnuolo and the duo of Kelsey and
Mahomes?
and Mahomes?
Nope. Not I.
It's
that
hard
would
to
be
do
your
so,
pick.
Sam.
Yeah. I mean, the only time I pick the Chiefs to lose, because I'm such a football aficionado and expert, was against Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. And I think that they've become the new Tom Brady New England Patriots. So.
The only hope I give the Eagles, and I'm not saying they cannot win, but I don't think if they win if they keep this game close. Because we all know what Mahomes and Kelsey can do when they have the ball in their hand to make a decision. If not as the Bills Mafia. See how it goes when the game is close and Mahomes still has a chance to make a difference. So if Saquon Barkley, I heard a stat today that is just mind blowing. He has an average of 4.1 yards per carry before he gets touched.
Wow. We finally found a guy who's faster than Boobie.
That's 4 yards
That's insane.
before he gets touched.
Yeah.
So he could be a difference, I think, if they're able to hold him. And obviously, they have some receivers that can make a difference.
Sure.
But it's hard to bet against experience. It's hard to bet against not only going for the third in a row, but I know these guys are going to play harder to have Andy Reid beat the Eagles again.
Right. And you would think that theoretically, if Philadelphia can run the ball successfully, they take the ball out of Mahomes' hands. Are you going to a Super Bowl party?
I'm not. I haven't been invited, so I don't know. I don't know. I'm in a couple of boxes there. I don't know. I hate it because I'm watching the game. I'm like, okay, I just need a miss extra point and a safety, and I got the squares.
The squares. Yeah. I'm always in those too, and it never ends well.
Guys,
for me.
we got about 30 seconds left, but I'm going to ask the question everybody wants to know. If the Chiefs win, does Travis Kelce propose to Taylor Swift?
See,
wow.
that you can tell the generation of a producer here. Like he's worried about the Swifties.
I'll say yes. He will. I think he proposes even if they lose.
The most normal thing I've seen about Taylor Swift is that when they won the game to go to the Super Bowl, she was walking around with Kelsey, and Kelsey ran into somebody that he introduced her to, and she said, "Hi, I'm Taylor." I was like,
Right, like they don't know.
that
Yeah,
was normal.
yeah.
Just like Sam and I.
Right.
I'm Rafa. He's
Yeah.
Sam. We'll
Yeah.
see you next week with a full report on the trade deadline on Full Court Cleveland.